My name is Sonya. My name is Sonya Woods, and I work at Moorland-Springarn Research Center here at Howard University. And I'm the guinea pig for this production, and I'm proud and happy and glad to be here to present to Black Girls in Archives and everyone who has joined. So I'm going to talk about what a little bit about what Moorland-Spingarn Research Center is, what we do, and how the center is operated or divided up, or what the divisions are, and then a little bit about my career path. So let's go ahead and begin. Moorland-Spingarn, preserving the legacy of the global Black experience is how we describe our mission. Um, so these are my goals. We'll have a Q&A at the end. So Moorland-Spingarn, we're over 100 years old. Moorland-Spingarn Research Center is a repository, an institution within an institution. So we've been at Howard for more than 100 years. Started in 1914 with the donation from an alum, and this is how we get our name. I'm going to explain this. So Jesse Moorland is a Howard alum, or was a Howard alum at the time. He was an officer or an official of the YMCA, the NAACP, and he was a good friend of Carter G. Woodson, and he helped Carter G. Woodson. Dr. Woodson found or established the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History at the time, as it was called. He donated his personal collection, his personal library, a collection that held books, pamphlets, journals, articles, other periodicals, and his collection was really about people of African descent by people of African descent. So he had a large book collection that he donated to alma mater. And alma mater decided that they were going to set up a room called the Moorland Room, or it was really set up as the Moorland Foundation. The first location, I believe, was in the Carnegie Building or either in the main hall at the time at Howard. 1946, Arthur Spingarn, who was an NAACP attorney, and he identified as a Jew. But he was an attorney for the NAACP, and Howard was a great friend. Matter of fact, he was on the board of trustees at the time. He also donated his personal collection to Moorland. Same type of material, donated to Howard. Same type of material, and so this is where we get the name Moorland-Spingarn. In 1930, Dorothy Porter joins the matter of fact, I think might have been Dorothy Burnett at the time, but Dorothy Burnett Porter joined the Moorland Foundation. She was also an alum of Howard. She had left Howard or graduated in 1928 and went to Columbia University to go to library science school. She was the first Black woman to graduate from Columbia and earn this degree. In library science. She was called back home to alma mater to run the Moorland Room or the Moorland Foundation. So she had a long career at Moorland, 43 years. She's very important to us because she did a lot of the collecting and purchasing and arranging for collections after the initial collections of Mr. Moorland and Mr. Spingarn. And then there were many other donations during this time as well. 1973 is an important date because this is when we see the reorganization of Moorland as an institution. Before it was a part of the library system at Howard, but in 1973 it became its own center under the directorship of Dr. Michael R. Winston. Move some things on my screen around. Okay, this is Dorothy Porter Wesley. So she is not only an alum of Howard, her father was an alum, brother, sister, and she married two professors at Howard over the course of her life. Her first husband was James Porter, James A. Porter, who was a art historian and worked in the Department of Art at Howard. Charles Wesley, who she married later, that's where she gets that part of her last name. But he was a historian and was a professor in the history department at Howard. With both husbands, and more so James Porter, she would travel a lot when they would both go to different conferences nationally and internationally. Um, and she would make contacts with librarians wherever she went, wherever she was traveling. And so a lot of the way that we received a lot of collections and books and pamphlets, especially part of our international collections, we have a whole Africa room where Dorothy Porter, when she was convening at places with James Porter, especially France, Paris, London, sometimes Germany, and then on the continent, Senegal, Ghana, different places. She would always find the librarians, find book dealers, and make trades or establish relationships where she would send duplicates to certain libraries and then duplicates were sent to her. So this is how our collection grew extensively during her tenure. There's three different divisions, I would say, of Moorland-Springarn. The library division, which is where Dorothy Porter worked, we don't call her an archivist. She's definitely a librarian, but also a collector. Um, the library division is the founding component, the founding division of Moorland-Springarn. Books, magazines, periodicals, peer-reviewed journals, not only from the United States, but all over the world, including South America and the Caribbean, are in the library division. The manuscript division is the division that holds our personal collections of personal papers that we have of folks, and also the organizational papers. For instance, we hold the personal papers of Charles Drew, Alain Locke, Lois Mayu Jones, and there are a lot of people, a lot of personal paper collections that are of individuals who are affiliated with Howard University and or Washington, D.C. or the federal government. We also hold the organizational papers. We're the official repository for Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, other organizations such as the Association of Black Sociologists, the Association of Black Psychologists. There's some Black golf, there's a Black golf collection, a Black collection on Black skaters, which is called Our Family Skate. And this is a conglomerate organization. It's like an umbrella organization for skating clubs around the country. So that's the manuscript division. And then there are several departments of the manuscript division. One of those is the Black Press Archives, which we call a program, but I'll get back to that later. University Archives Division, which I have worked in for many years while I was here, while at Moorland. Also worked in the manuscript division as a student. But University Archives has all Howard history. So it's everything Howard history, including Board of Trustee meetings and minutes, annual reports from the different academic and administrative units of Howard University, various periodicals, dissertations, theses, photographs. It's Howard history, and that's kind of my specialty. And the Howard Museum is not a museum, but it's a component of Moorland-Springarn, and it's how we a lot of times display or exhibit some of the collections and groups who are affiliated with Moorland-Springarn. For instance, right now the exhibit is the Gordon Parks exhibit, which I'll talk a little bit about later as well. The library division, there's over 175,000 books and pamphlets in microfilm and microform. Rare books there, also dating back to the 16th century. A lot of first edition books that we keep hidden away, kind of, but they're there. and then other library vertical files and other types of material. This is what our library division, our reading room looks like. So this is this is the room that we invite researchers into. If you have a research appointment at Moorland-Springarn, it's in this room typically. Going to the manuscript division, I talked about this, but I didn't tell you about the department. So there's the manuscript department, which represents the collections, the personal papers, and the organizational papers. There's also a music department. We have a lot of sheet music, and a lot about ethno-musical types of traditions internationally across the diaspora. Prints and photographs is a large department. It's where all of the film and prints and photographs are held from the manuscript division. And then there's an oral history department where we keep a lot of print interviews. Over 650 collections. All of those are not processed, but every repository has a backlog. Over 400 composers dating back to the 18th century in the music department. Recording, songbook, albums. So there are a lot of, the music department has a lot of vinyl from a lot of different eras of the United States history specifically, and from a lot of regions. It really is fascinating, and I think the manuscript division will work to make that more interactive in the future. And then there are over 150,000 images in the prints and photographs department. University archives is what we talked about before, the yearbooks, everything Howard history is also artifacts in that division. Now, the Black Press Archives is the newest part, or a newer part of Moorland-Springarn, but it originated as a part of the manuscript division. It's a program or a project that started with the National Newspapers Publishers Association. So these are the Black press, the Black journal, Black newspaper owners. In 1973, a partnership between Howard and the NMPA, and they decided that they would send every issue of their newspaper to the university so that students and faculty and other scholars can have access to those. And so a lot of those were sent, of course, as print newspapers. Later on, they were microfilmed. And then we have the born digital part of those newspapers. What the Black Press Archives is doing after receiving this $2 million grant is to digitize all of these publications and make them available on a website. So they're working to digitize those every week, every day, and more are now being available for the public through this work. And if you follow Moorland-Springarn on social media and the Black Press Archives, you will get updates as to which newspapers are being released in a digital format. The Howard University Museum is actually in the Dorothy B. Porter room. This room was named that by the university before her second marriage. And there have been most of the exhibits in the past. The museum was really an arm of university archives, and the exhibits showcased Howard history as it's reflected in the collections. Now, though, the museum is kind of administered by the admin team of Moorland-Springarn, and there are all kind of exhibits that don't necessarily reflect Howard University. For instance, right now up there in the museum is Temples of Hope, Rituals of Survival, Gordon Parks, and Black Religious Life. And these are some of the exhibits listed here that we've held in the past. Digital Howard is our online repository. Digital Howard is where we keep all of or whether we send the public to see all finding aids and especially for the manuscript division. But there has been an ongoing digitization project at Moorland-Springarn, and Digital Howard was actually the brainchild of the current archivist for the state of the District of Columbia. His name is Dr. Lopez Matthews. So he figured out 10 years ago that we are going to have to be more proactive in preserving our material or collections in a digital format. And so he wrote a proposal, pitched it to the higher ups at Howard and at Moorland-Springarn and the library divisions here across the campus. And he wrote his job description and became the digital production manager. And Digital Howard really helped to save us and I feel like save a lot of people during COVID quarantine. So he had the foresight to see that we needed to get that done. And so at Digital Howard, you can find all the information, a lot of the information that I just shared with you, but there are also finding aids there and research guides, previews of photographs, and a lot of other things there. All of the yearbooks that Howard has published up until I think 2011 are digitized and available for viewing and downloading at Digital Howard. The Hilltop, which is the student newspaper on Digital Howard. There's several other publications established and run by the university, different academic and administrative units of the university on Digital Howard as well. So it's a very important tool. I use it every day. And there are a lot of people who use it worldwide. You can actually see at the bottom of Digital Howard who's downloading what, not necessarily who, but where the downloads are happening on the map in real time. So it's a fascinating component of Moorland-Springarn. Okay, that's pretty much the end of that. I wanted to keep it short, so if we had discussion or questions or anything else we wanted to talk about tonight or bring to the table tonight, we could. But here's our website, msrc.howard.edu, and that is my email address if you have any questions that we cannot answer tonight, or if you want to schedule a tour or a visit or a research appointment, contact me and I can guide you through that process.
Thank you so much. That was so informative.
Oh,
I know
thank
so
you.
much more about the Howard research center now. So now we're gonna open the floor up to any questions. If you want, you guys can either raise your hand or you can ask in the chat. And if you ask in the chat, I'll just read your question. But if anybody is brave enough to come off of mute, feel free and we'll answer any questions you have.
I see. I'm gonna hit some of the questions that I see. I think Aaliyah or maybe Aliyah Joe. This is something that many Black alum were doing right. I wonder if that is a practice that continues. I know Ntozake Shange also archived her papers at Barnard before her passing. Clearly, this is something that you typed in while I was speaking, so I'm not really sure. I guess what you were asking about is when I was talking about Jesse Moorland donating his collection. But yes, a lot of Black alum do that. And a lot of Black alum and Black faculty members, Black or any other creed, have donated material to Moorland-Springarn so that it can be used for posterity and understanding the work of various scholars here at Howard, the work of various federal employees. So yes, the donations or the collections, a lot of them are made up of from alum and faculty and staff of Howard University.
Perfect. Christina, you had your hand first, and then Aaliyah will come back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Armani.
Hi, thank you. I'm sorry I missed the first 10 minutes, but I was curious if you did address this. Sorry, but I wanted to hear about your personal journey as an archivist and like what was your choice to, I believe looking you up that you attended Howard, but what was your choice? Like why for you was it important to work for the university archives?
So yes, I didn't get to that at all. My personal journey. So I'm born and raised in North Carolina. Um, and I attended North Carolina Central University for undergrad. I was a direct admit to the business school because I put on my application I was interested in accounting, and my GPA was right. So, but I stayed in that major as long as I could stand it. I was on the dean's list. My grades were fine, but I missed reading and I missed writing. And so I decided at that point, after about 3 semesters, I was going to change my major, and it was going to be between English and history. I chose English and got a degree in English literature. And so I've always loved history and reading and writing. So that part, of course, plays a big role in me ending up in the field of archives and librarianship. I actually, after graduating with my undergrad degree, my bachelor's degree, I worked in different fields for 10 years before I was convinced or decided that it was time for me to go back to school. I did so many different things. I took some speech pathology classes. I took some real estate classes. I was a real estate appraiser and a real estate, I worked in real estate for many years. And doing that, I learned a lot of the jobs I had, or the jobs I took, actually all lead me back to where I am now. I worked in restaurants, hospitality. I was a bartender. I was a teacher. I taught English out of actually language arts in middle school. And it was after teaching language arts in middle school that I really knew that it was time for me to go back to school. And so I did, and I ended up in the history department. That first change of major, it was either going to be English or history. So this time I took up history because I found myself just doing research for fun. And one day my sister, who went straight through in her schooling, and her terminal degree was a doctorate in psychology, but she was at work with me one day at one of the restaurants I worked with, at the bar or somewhere, I can't remember. And she found some of the notes that I had been taking, just thinking out loud of what I wanted to research, or if I was building an outline or something. And she said, it's really time for you to go back to school. And I agreed. And so I did, and earned a master's degree in history from North Carolina Central University, our alma mater. And so two out of the three advisors or thesis committee that I had were Howard graduates, and they felt that I had no intention of going to doctoral, going to earn a PhD. I had no intentions of that, but they felt like that I should do that, and I listened to them. And so they just told me, "You're going to Howard." I applied, got in, and worked towards my doctorate. Well, let's go back a little bit. When I got on campus, one of the first things I did was go to Moorland-Springarn, because I knew from my professors in the history department at Central that Moorland-Spingarn was a special place. And I would go and just sit there and either do an assignment that I already had, or I would look at yearbooks, or I would do a lot of things. So I was getting to know Moorland slowly as a student, a PhD student in the history department. We had an assignment in the historiography class that is like a prerequisite. It's a first year class that you had to go to Moorland to complete the assignment. It was like 60% of your grade to go to Moorland, select from the list of collections and write a paper on your experience. And it was guided by several questions. And so I did that, and the curator of manuscripts at the time said, "You really spend a lot of time." I would go back day after day. "You really spend a lot of time on this. Why don't you think about volunteering here or working here?" And so I did, and that's how I started as a student, volunteering, and then I got a position as a student, and I worked in the manuscript division, the university archives division, um, and the university archivist at the time, who was my supervisor, when Lopez Matthews wrote that job description for himself and became the digital productions manager, my supervisor, Dr. Muse, let me know that a position will be coming open soon. He said, "I want you to apply for it." And I did that. And that's how I got to Moorland-Springarn as an archivist. Now, I don't have an MLIS. That's important. I think that's important for you to know. And I don't recommend, I wouldn't say do what I did. I would never say that. But I kind of found myself as an archivist because Dr. Muse would mentor me and show me a lot of things. And he had worked at the National Archives. He was a product of the history department. So was Dr. Matthews, and a lot of the staff members at that time were products of the history department. So I just came to really love what I was doing. You know, I was getting anxious anyway about finishing up and becoming a professor. I didn't really, that wasn't attractive to me at the time. So I took the job that I got, and this was right before it was time for me to write my proposal for my dissertation. And so that's how I got where I am. And I don't regret it. I do look forward to a time, COVID kind of messed up a lot of plans for a lot of people. I had plans to do some other things, but it also gave us the opportunity to build Moorland up to what I think it should be. At the time, during COVID, at one point, Moorland had 50 employees, 50 plus employees. During the COVID quarantine, we were down to 5. Right. And so Amani is shaking her head. And so, but it gave us an opportunity to kind of reboot and bring Moorland into the 21st century with digitization, with a lot of new and younger staff members. So we're kind of in a reboot period, a period of growth, and I really appreciate our director is a Howard alum from the history department, and he loves Moorland-Springarn. So it's a really good time, I think, in the history of Moorland-Springarn. I know that was long, but that's the story.
Thank you. Aaliyah, you want to go next, and then we'll go to a few questions in the chat.
Hi, Miss Woods, Dr. Woods?
No, Miss.
Miss
So
Woods.
yeah, I didn't finish yet.
Okay, okay. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for presenting to us. Armani, thank you for hosting. My name is Aaliyah. I'm from Chicago. I am an MLIS student at the University of Washington. Um, and Barnard alum. And I'm curious about the process. It's sort of a two-in-one question. I'm curious about the process for donating papers and material as alum, accomplished or not. And then also, I'm curious about the use of archival materials outside of academia. I've really enjoyed this Instagram page. It's called the Hoochie Historian, and she'll post pictures of Black people, and of our culture and our history in like these really fun and creative ways. And I feel like she's using some archive somewhere to kind of make that happen and make that presentable for people like us who are not, maybe don't have access to like those collections. But as a student, I do have access, and I'm occasionally and infrequently working with them. But I'm wondering, post grad or outside of academia, how could we use these collections for like activism or learning, or like what would their purpose be outside of, academics?
Excellent question. So a lot of PBS stays in Moreland all the time. Documentaries, Um, documentarians, archival producers are at Moorland all the time, or they're a member of their team. Um, use archives all the time, and I pay attention. I love documentaries. I always spend a lot of time watching the documentaries that come out of our collections, and as well as this, Moorland is comparable. I don't think I said this. Moorland-Springarn is an institution within an HBCU, but our collections are comparable to the Schomburg, in quantity and quality and standard. It's comparable. I think we have more. Moreland has more collections, but the Schomburg has more available because they've been able. The Schomburg has a different budget. It's a New York they have New York public library money, so it takes staff and time to process materials. But to get back to your question, exhibits in various places. Her name is Marcy, but I can't think of her last name right now. But she was she's from Chicago. She's an alum from Chicago, but she a Howard alum from Chicago. But she does for different movies. She looks at the clothes that people. I can't think of what that's called, but she's the costume director for various movies. She comes into Moorland, or has come into Moorland on several occasions to look at magazines from various time periods, depending on what the movie is. For instance, what is the movie? It was a Black Panther movie. But anyway, she was a costume designer for that, and she would sit there and look at different magazines and take notes on what folks were wearing during the era, and use that for her costume design. Let's see, parks use archives for to highlight different milestones. And I'm working with a Northern Virginia park system right now about some of the milestones for their particular park. The land for the park was donated by a Howard faculty member, and so they're trying to get down some of the facts of this person's career and a lot of other things. So various ways to use archives. Film is one of my favorite because I'm able to see in quick time how the archive was used, and of course scholarly books. But one interesting part of your question that I heard that I kind of want to touch on or get other people to think about is, and because I was talking to one of my students last night, and we were talking about silences in the archives, and you kind of alluded to that, like how do we decide who gets to have a collection in a repository? Now, Moorland-Spingarn historically has been kind of elitist in that way. I hear you. I hear what you're saying. So really the answer to that is we need more archives. We need more archivists. They don't always have to be brick and mortar. Solange has an archive. What is her? You understand what I'm saying? So all of these repositories are important, I think, for and each one doesn't have the same mission. So there's various ways to use the different types of artifacts and documentation that are in an archive.
Thank
I
you.
hope that answers your question.
Yes, and I'm glad you kind of wrapped it up with the elitism and access,
Yeah.
especially because it's academia, it's not, who is this for? And we're lucky, some of us are lucky to be able to experience that. So thank you for speaking to that.
But also it is kind of elitist, but there are also other within several collections. You can find things or find documentation, find artifacts, find stories that have not been used. it's important to speak to archivists and librarians and people who work in these spaces because they know the collections best. And you might be able to find some little nuggets in a collection that you think is elitist off top. For instance, Charles Drew. We know who Charles Drew was. He was a physician at Howard, and a faculty member. But in his collection, he was also an athlete. He was a superior athlete in different sports. You could find a lot of DC sports history in Charles Drew's papers, when a lot of people might think, oh, I'm going to look at how this man became a blood plasma pioneer or medical pioneer. He was actually an athlete who was well known as an athlete by the time he got to high school. So there's a lot of that in his collection. So these are a lot of these people we think of as elite, but they were real people and individuals who had varied different aspects of their lives going on.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great question, Aaliyah. We'll move on to the next one. Abby is asking, she says, hi, for the manuscript division with the 400 composers, is there anything on Florence Price, Samuel Coleridge Taylor, or Joseph Boulogne Chevalier de St. George? So Black classical music.
Chevalier, I'm not sure. Coleridge Taylor, yes. And there's a lot of Florence Price, I'm not sure, but there's a lot of classical music there. There's classical music, blues, a lot of stuff from New Orleans. So you're getting a lot of different sounds or types of music from there. So there's a variety in the music department, the 400 composers, but there is a significant representation of Black classical music.
Mm-hmm. Aaliyah, you asked another question about, is there funding available for ventures like that? Is there anything particular that you were asking? Because I think somebody asked a follow-up question about family photography collection as well, but I didn't know if that correlated with both. So, Aaliyah, if you can give us some clarification. I don't know if she's typing.
Oh, okay. All right.
But we'll come back. We have another question from Maya. Maya says, thank you for the presentation and your work. For any starter tips for digitalizing archives. She was recently recommended to start cataloging her archive of Black media/culture artifacts. Is it general practice to maintain independent archives or collaborate with existing databases? And do you believe all physical archives need to be digitalized? Can you catalog without doing so?
All physical archives can't be digitized. You have to prioritize. You have to prioritize what's digitized and what's not. Photographs, in the prioritization process, is up to the center or archivist. Catalog, you were recommended to start cataloging your media. Now, I recommend that as well. Now, you could I don't know if Maya, if you're an archivist, but if you could find a way to standardize or set a standard for doing that, or you could easily read up on how archivists do it according to archival standard. Digitization is, everybody thinks it's, that you snap your fingers and something is digitized. It takes some time. It does take a little bit of time. And we can't digitize everything. So we have to set some priorities based on need. If something is falling apart or brittle, fragile, maybe you want to digitize that first. requests for access and funds. We digitize at Moorland when we have the funds, especially if another organization says we want to partner with you to get this digitized. We read the fine print now. We don't partner with everybody for anything. You just can't come in here and say, hey, let's be a partner. But certainly if there is a group or an organization or society that's putting up money to help pay for digitization, that tends to make it priority. Starter tips. Yeah, for photos, media, for visual media, I'm afraid to give you starter tips, but if you contact me, I know people who will know better than I do. And digitizing is not necessarily my main thing or what I know best. But there's some material that I could send you that's standard, or either put you in contact with people who may be able to give you some good starter tips. Oh,
The next,
it might have
go ahead.
been Judas and the Black Messiah. Marcy Carter. I think her name is Carter. Marcy. I know it's Marcy Rogers, and it's Rodgers.
We'll move on to the next question. Just for time wise, guys, we might not be able to get to every question because we have about 10 more minutes, but I'm gonna try to get to everyone's. Simone said, um, I'm very interested in your answer to Aaliyah's question. As a documentary production and studies MFA student, how does one get started or transition their film practice to archive producing? I've grown to see documentary archives as a way to create sculpture slash experimental films like the works of Jatovia Gary. Are there residencies or workshops to begin learning?
Yes. So MFAs. So I got so many things battling with. Okay. So I think there are many grants that could help you. And we got to get better at that, at looking for grant funding to help get some of this work done. And people are really willing, whether it's a federal grant or a small funding house or whatever. But there are ways to and hopefully Black Girls in Archive will also be available to be a reference or a referral system to help some of these address some of these archival questions. One thing, this is going to go away from your question a little bit, but I want to explain this. One implementation at Moorland-Springarn Research Center that I really, really respect, that Dr. Talton, our director, brought to us was, and we had student internships before, but there's an official program here at Moorland-Springarn called the MSRC Scholars Program. And you don't necessarily have to be a historian or a student of African American studies or African studies, Black studies, to be an archivist. This field needs to be opened up to various disciplines, whether it's music or communications, or there are many different angles to this, I think. But I could put you in contact with some people or some sites or some foundations and organizations that would help you to understand that there is funding, there are seminars and workshops, and always check YouTube. There's a lot on YouTube. We also have a YouTube page, Moorland-Springarn does. But there's a lot on YouTube, as always, that could help show you how to go about doing some of these things. the Society of American Archivists, you typically have to be a member to benefit from some of these workshops and sessions. But there are different ways, different avenues. Thank you for your question, Simone. I hope that is helpful, but if it's not, email me and I can get you to some answers, some tangible answers, some good answers.
I do want to piggyback on what you said too, as well. It's like I work within fashion archives, which is not a big sector of archives. So a lot of the work that I've done, even just creating this community, has created me a network of people to
Right.
connect me to. So sometimes you kind of have to like branch out a little bit and just
Mm-hmm.
ask people,
Yeah.
because like it's so many different types of archives and people just think of museums automatically,
Right.
um, and they don't think about libraries or HBCUs that house their own materials. So I think if you find the lane that you're interested in, just kind of do some digging and ask some people, and somebody will lead you to somebody who might know somebody within archives. That's honestly the
I
truth.
I think that is very, very accurate and a good way to answer that. Your networks, building your networks are important, and tap into other folks' networks. You don't know who knows who. Um, that's an excellent way to put that. What part of North Carolina? I'm from a little small town called Roxborough, which is north of Durham. Um, my dad is from Charlotte. My mother is from Warren County. So I'm like a seventh, eighth generation North Carolinian actually. Fayetteville, I hear you. Winston-Salem State, A&T, I hear you. I was there in the 90s. Um, Good time was had. So I see you, Coleman.
Okay. I think we have time for maybe one more question. Um, to Taya, maybe I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Um, she asked, how do repositories come to be housed at Moorland? Is it always something that is offered to the research center by the donor? Or are there other instances where Moorland has reached out to an individual because they are known to have an extensive collection or because of their status in their field?
Okay. We typically don't reach out. We got so much backlog. We don't solicit for collections. Usually they do come by donor. Um, in the manuscript division, they come by donor. Sometimes we get referred to people who want to donate, or who think that this person's papers should be preserved. And, you know, it's up to the curator of manuscript division to decide if those collections of personal papers or organizational papers fit our mission. For instance, if a person was better known in other communities, for instance, in Detroit or in Chicago or somewhere in the Midwest, we've typically said, I think your collection would be better served to that community if you could find a repository or a center there that will take those papers. We really have a lot of collections that we want to focus on right now, to process them, to make them available to the public for research. So we're not really seeking to add to our collections a lot unless there's some money that comes with it. That's just something that we've had to do, because storage becomes a problem. Storage becomes a problem. For the university archives, most of those collections come from across the campus anyway, from an academic unit or administrative unit. It could be, Office of Student Life or Career Planning and Placement, or what have you. But for the manuscript division and the library division, Library division orders a lot of books now, but those are typically donated.
I do you got
Go ahead. No,
you
go
got
ahead. Go
something?
ahead.
I just wanted to wrap us up to make sure we end it on time because I don't want to hold anybody, especially you, here too much longer. But if anyone has any other questions about the Howard Howard University archives or the Moorland Research Center archives, I'm gonna re drop the website link, and Miss Woods her email address is also in there. It's under the link. So she is already open to anybody reaching out with any more questions that you guys have. Aaliyah, thank you for sharing all these links. You've been on it to
Yeah.
be able to
Yeah.
share the Are You a Librarian? Rodney's great. I've met him, I've talked to him. And the YouTube link and all the things. So thank you for working as a second person, a third person here, I guess. And thank you for everybody to for coming out. We really, really, really appreciate it. We Black Girls in Archives will have another one pretty soon. We're gonna work on getting our group chat and Discord or however you guys would like it so we can share resources. This presentation also will be up on YouTube in the next few weeks. So you guys can also come back and live all of this all over again. But thank you guys so much. We truly appreciate you being here. If you guys have any questions for Black Girls in Archives, our Instagram is there. Thank you guys. It means a lot for you guys to thank me for creating space. But I hope you guys have a great night. Thank you.
Abby emailed me. Thank you, Alafia and Sanaa and Zoe and Trey.